I have a strange history with Apple. When I was young, I was Apple's biggest hater, convincing all of my friends to move off of iPhones and Macs. And then in college, I slowly came around and eventually became what many would call an Apple fanboy. But I'm an Apple fanboy who has a lot of gripes with Apple. And those gripes have been growing a ton lately. And I have to crash out a little bit. Before I do that, though, I'm not dressed properly to be talking about this. So give me one moment. There we go. And now that I'm dressed the part, I hope Apple will listen. So to any people at Apple that might be here to watch me crash out, I have one thing to say. What the fuck? Okay, I have a lot more to say than that, and we're going to get to it in a sec, but I have something I want to talk about first. Today's sponsor. You guys give me a lot of crap for how often I change tools. And honestly, I understand. I swear I'm just kind of shifting around based on what's interesting to me, and that might not be the best way to make engineering decisions. You know what's a much better way to make good decisions? Paying attention to what my team chooses based on all of the things they see me using. Since I try everything, my team's exposed to a lot of it, and there's a very small set of those tools that they choose. Today's sponsor is CodeRabbit, and it's one of the tools my team has picked over all of the alternatives. It's consistently the best code reviewer that we have on the team, even across the humans. It catches things almost nothing else does, and it does it really consistently, reliably, and with little suggestions you can copy paste into your code base directly. The more we use agents to write code, the more essential this becomes, not just because the AI is reviewing so we don't have to, but because it catches a lot of small mistakes that either aren't going to be noticed by a human or just aren't worth a human's time. We shouldn't be going through every PR line by line, making sure every single thing is perfect. That's what the AI is for. Human review should be for figuring out what's going on, why it's going on, and making sure it actually suffices for the task at hand. CodeRabbit makes all of this way easier. From the walkthroughs to the specific callouts for what changed in what files, to the thorough feedback it gives on your PRs that is very easy to tune. CodeRabbit almost feels weirdly responsive to your preferences, where if you tell it, hey, don't comment on this anymore, it just stops. I wish I could say the same about all the other tools and honestly all the other members of my team. And if you want to ship straight to main, I understand. I'm similar too, but those code reviews can be useful, which is why I've been loving their built-in VS Code extension as well as their CLI. I love this quote from David, the director of engineering at the Linux Foundation. CodeRabbit's proven invaluable in uncovering discrepancies between our documentation and test coverage, highlighting inconsistencies like missing null checks or mismatched value ranges, significantly improved the quality of our code base and prevented numerous potential issues. I can personally say that CodeRabbit's prevented us from shipping dozens of bugs the last 2 weeks alone. Stop shipping bugs without slowing down at soydev.link/CodeRabbit. This is one of those rants that's going to need chapters because I have so many layers to get to in it. My gripes with Apple are deep and they're growing rapidly. I'm going to try my best to break down my frustrations into 3 rough categories: software, policy, and ignorance. I don't know how else to put it, but we need to get through all of this. The biggest inspiration for me doing this crash out is not actually available on the computer I'm using right now. This is my M4 MacBook Pro that I love dearly. This is my daily driver. Well, for the most part. This is the computer I bring out with me. This is the computer I work on. This is the computer I get most of my work done with. But it's not my only MacBook. For various reasons, I made the mistake of purchasing a 16-inch MacBook Pro recently. I hate it. I hate it for a lot of reasons. But there's one particular reason we need to talk about, which is the software it is running. When I got this computer from Apple, I manually downgraded it from macOS 26 to the most recent version before they screwed it up with Liquid Glass. And believe me, we're going to be talking a lot about Liquid Ass. But I went out of my way to make sure this computer wasn't running it. And it wasn't. It now is. I did a standard update on this laptop after manually preventing the macOS 26 update multiple times. I went out of my way to make sure it wouldn't happen. And then I hit a small button after looking through a list of things and unchecking the ones I didn't want, including macOS 26, so that I would only install the Final Cut and Safari updates I needed. And the update took way longer than I thought it should. And when it booted, I was greeted with that hideous, shimmery version of the clock and knew how fucked I was immediately. I don't want this whole video to be about macOS 26, but at the very least, a significant portion has to be. It feels like macOS and iOS are falling apart. There was a certain, I don't know how to put it other than quality bar that Apple went so out of their way to maintain. And when they did sweeping changes, they would even do those relatively well. I will never forget the iOS 7 moment. This is when I made the move over because iOS 6 was fine, but I was on an Android phone and I had customized the hell out of it to make it beautiful with all my fancy things I would do on my rooted phone running CyanogenMod back in the day. And then I saw what iOS 7 looked like and realized that it was better looking than anything I could customize myself on my Android. And when you look at different apps between iOS 6 and iOS 7, you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's how the Compass app changed. Previously, it had a real feeling gold compass on a wooden background. And now it's flat, just black with white. This move away from skeuomorphism and towards flat, clear, concise designs was a weird mental shift that they did in just one update. Like, if you think going from the way your phone looked before over to liquid glass was jarring, you have no idea how jarring this change was. Going from everything looking like the physical counterparts to everything looking minimal and flat. It took a while for our apps to update and use this new design language, but all of Apple's surfaces, all of the things Apple owned and managed, were ready to go day one. It never felt like you were using old apps from Apple on the new device. They did this crazy seamless overhaul, and I was blown away. I moved to an iPhone and honestly almost never saw apps that felt like they were in the old days, even though I got an iPhone a few weeks after iOS 7 dropped. It was kind of crazy. I do not feel the same way in the slightest about macOS and iOS 26. My Theo Mark accidentally updated his MacBook around the same time I did. Do you see the difference in the rounding of these corners? Two separate windows open on the same computer at the same time with entirely different ideas of how the actual app should be rendered. When I first opened up an application in the new macOS build, I saw like almost a bowing at the edges because they fundamentally changed how the curvature for the corner radiuses looks. And I know this sounds like I'm nitpicking bullshit. No, fuck you. This is awful. It literally looks like the window's curving like this on the side. Like if I draw this, it's like they took the rounded corners in the side and they did this very, very slightly. I thought I might be like drunk or hallucinating or something when I finished the update. I legitimately thought I was going mad. Like, the fuck? The actual fuck. And this isn't some third-party app either. This is Finder. This is the file manager in macOS. And the corner radius difference between the background window and this pop-up overlay here and the gap between those where there's like more space here than there is there hurts me. Every time I see more info about the corners in macOS, I go a little more insane. All of these radii are different. Reminder, same company, where they went out of their way to make sure that the corner radius on all of their hardware matched perfectly. The watch, the phone, the tablet, the computers, the keyboards, all of those corners match perfectly. How do we live in a world where Apple can do something that is genuinely absurdly difficult in getting all of the corner radii across all of their hardware to match, and they can't get two windows to match in their goddamn operating system? What the hell went wrong? And I'm not against a lot of parts of the design aesthetic. I am still a bit of a Vision Pro defender. I know it will never be a useful or popular device for most people, but I like it. And I like the aesthetic of it. And I understand parts of this design shift were to bring good elements from the Vision Pro over to the other devices and try to streamline the user experience across them. I think they did a terrible fucking job. And that's just macOS. The harder problem for me is my phone. Like, honestly, on my computer, I can get away with just full screening 3 apps and going back to like living my life. But my iPhone runs my life. So my iPhone getting worse deeply fucks with me. And iOS 26 has made my life meaningfully worse. I want to blame Apple for most of this, but I'm going to start by blaming you fuckers. In iOS 18, Apple made a very interesting change to the Photos app where you would effectively have a 2-part experience where on the top half would be your gallery and the bottom half would be everything else. And you could slide up or down depending on what you want to do. If you want to look at your library, you just slide down and the whole thing is there and you can already see a bit of it. If you want to find a specific album or utilities or something else, you slide up and can see all of those grouped things underneath. It meant that usually you didn't have to touch very many surfaces if you wanted to get to something in Photos. The thing people hated about this was that they didn't have a separate library view and albums view. They did, though. You would slide up for albums and you'd slide down for your library. There were some issues. Specifically, the order of things in the bottom half was wrong initially, and you have to go customize it. But with the tiniest bit of customization, you could make the Photos app incredible. So again, I would open the Photos app, and this is what I would see. The top half would be recent stuff, and the bottom half would be my utilities, because I moved utilities to the top because I would use them a lot. because I would need to go to my documents or my favorites pretty often. And if I had a recent screenshot for something that was relevant, like I regularly will screenshot something that I need to deal with later. And when I open the Photos app, I see my last 15 screenshots or whatever else I was doing. And right underneath, I would see my utilities, then my albums. It was so easy to get to where I needed to be in this app. And as crazy as it sounds, I am a power user of photos. I am. I open this app multiple times a day to grab a screenshot from something to remember what I'm supposed to be doing. And you ungrateful bastards fucked it up for me. You guys are so unwilling to think for 5 seconds about how an app works that they gave you a fucking button. And now the Photos app has this hideous monstrosity in the bottom where you switch between library mode and collections mode. And I never know which I'll be in when I open it. And it's usually collections, which is not where I want to be. So if I want to get to the most recent screenshot, and remember, I'm holding this phone in my hand. There are different areas that are easy to click and different ones that are hard to click. Do you know what's easy to click? This area. Top right, 2/3, but not the absolute top. This area is very easy to click. Do you know what areas are hard to touch? Here and here. If I need to get to my library, I now have to reach to the bottom of my phone and click that button. And do you know what's even worse? I want the most recent photo. Do you think that's on the top or the bottom? Not only is it on the bottom, it's underneath the search button. So when I'm opening the Photos app to go grab my most recent screenshot, I have to reach all the way to the bottom left to hit library. Then I have to push it up slightly to get the most recent photos out of the area where they're being covered by the search button, and then reach to the bottom right to hit the photo. Not only did they take something that was one touch before and make it 3, they took one touch that was in an easy to hit zone, because remember, the way the app was working with iOS 18 is there was a split in the middle. I had my gallery up top, and I had my utilities and albums, I'll call it groups, down here, which means I could very easily go all the way in on groups by touching in the middle. So I would just touch my thumb here and drag it up and move into groups. Or if I want a bigger gallery, I touch anywhere in this area and go down, and now I'm in the gallery. It was fucking awesome. It was actually really good. And you fuckers took that from me. Not only do I have to click 3 things instead of just literally tapping the photo I want here, because that's how it worked with this app. The most recent thing was right there. I would open the Photos app, I would touch it, I was good. Now, instead of that, when I open the Photos app, it is just groups. We have this little button in the bottom left that I have to reach all the way down to press to get into the library. After that, I'm now in the library or gallery. I then have to drag up somewhere on the screen in order to get the photos out of that bad touch zone. Because remember, down here, you have all that IO, you have the switcher, and you have the search button. And then finally, after doing that, I have moved the thing I wanted to touch far enough out of the way of that bad range, this dead zone, that the thing I actually want to touch that was underneath it is now visible and I can finally hit it. All in the area of my phone that is the hardest to touch. Fuck you. I hate that I'm crashing out over the fucking Photos app so badly, but this one isn't Apple's fault. This is your fault. Every single one of you who complained about the gallery is part of why I'm crashing out here. Do you know who wouldn't have reverted and made this much worse? Steve fucking Jobs. He would have stood firmly and said, no, the people are wrong. Get over it. And I still firmly believe all they had to do to fix this was change what was in this group section by default. Instead of it being the shitty suggestions and the weird fake albums that they would make, they should have just changed the order and had utilities first, albums second, their weird bullshit third, and no one would have complained. But instead, they bowed to the crowd and did the stupid fucking thing. And this is going to be a recurring theme. I know right now I'm bitching at you and not Apple, but I need you to understand why. Apple listens to the wrong people and they ignore the right ones. This is the theme I am seeing with them that sucks. Apple will listen to loud crowds of people who are incorrect and ignore people who care deeply that are correct, internal or external. This is how they got where they are. Here's an example of somebody Apple should be listening to. This is a beautiful website. It's called bugsappleloves.com. And it is full of napkin math and crazy assertions around real experiences that Apple is too lazy to fucking fix. The author's estimates are that these bugs cost 32.4 million years of time per year. And I don't think they're that off. Each bug's different, but the math's real. Here is how they do the math. Number of users affected, multiplied by frequency, multiplied by time per incident. They also have a power user task for workaround time because it gets you out of the flow, and the amount of years the thing has been unfixed. This seems like a bit of a reach until you read the fucking bugs. Mail search doesn't work. I, as an enlightened individual, know better than to trust Apple software with anything that actually matters in my day-to-day work. If you look at the apps I have open here, one of them is by Apple, and it's because you can't really replace it. The Zen browser is not by Apple. It's an open source browser that I like a lot. Notion's obviously not by Apple. And don't get me started on Apple Notes. I already have the Obsidian crash out video coming. I could do a whole ass video about how fucking horrible Apple Notes is, but I'll spare you from that because nobody actually uses it. You're all lying to yourselves. Share a note with photos in it if you want to see just how bad things can get. Helium, another browser I really like, not Apple at all. Cursor, my text editor, notably not Xcode. So far we have not Safari, not Apple Notes, not Safari, not Xcode, not Terminal. And I was somebody who stuck with the stock Terminal for a while until I realized how poorly they supported basic terminal standards, and my friends building TUIs bullied me into moving off. So now I'm on Ghosty. And then Legcord, which is a Discord fork wrapper thing, notably not iMessage. And then the furthest back app on my computer right now, Finder, sure, that's Apple. Hell, even Spotlight, which is one of my favorite Apple features, I'm not using Spotlight anymore. I'm using Raycast because it's so much better. Look at the calculator. I use this multiple times a day. 200 times 15 million. 3 billion. 200 inches in meters. 5.08 meters. I use this every day. It's so fucking good. There are so many great developers building incredible software on Apple's platform that we can get by with the fact that the Mail app is actually fucking garbage. It's so bad. I don't know anybody who seriously uses the Mail app that does more than an email a day. I just don't. I know more people who use the Mail app and pay someone to manage their inbox for them than I know people who use the Mail app sincerely as their real Mail app. Like, it's insane. It's so fucking bad. And it's used by a significant portion of Apple users. I know my mom uses it. She's not a serious email user, but she does. And the search does not work at all. It just doesn't. Search the email address of somebody you've talked to. It does not appear. Search the subject. It does not come up. A unique word you know is in the email. Nope. Their search just does not work. So you give up and use the Gmail site, or you get a better app. Like, I'm on Superhuman. I don't love it. It's fine. If you run into this on average 2 times a day, which is not unreasonable, the estimate that they come to, the number of users, is that this independently costs 13.5 billion hours a year and 4.2 thousand years of human life a day. And I believe that. It gets worse, though. Autocorrect ignoring when you tell it to fuck off. Oh, man. I did not think this was that bad, but they changed something in iOS 26, and now it is happening to me all of the fucking time. All of the fucking time. I'm nearing the point where I turn off autocomplete entirely because I mostly slide type anyways, so I'll just fix the thing. This is not a hard fix. It's really not. You persist slightly more state so that when a change is manually edited, you don't touch that bit of text again. I know this isn't that hard because I use an app called Whisperflow. I like using Whisperflow in apps like Excalidraw and Cursor. It got Excalidraw wrong. It said Scaladraw. So let's change that quick to Excalidraw. Is it not going to do the fucking thing? Fuck. What is? Oh, there it goes. Okay. It worked. It took a minute. Added Excalidraw to your dictionary. So I guess the code isn't that easy. The point I'm trying to make here is that a third-party company that has to work around Apple's bullshit got to the point where I could change a thing it did wrong, a word that it didn't know, and now it is fixed. And watch this. I like using Whisperflow and Excalidraw. Now it knows how to do it. Sure, getting it to trigger was more annoying than I thought it would be, but it has been very seamless in my day-to-day use. I don't know why it was so buggy there. It's great. Ready for where it gets even crazier? I love using Whisperflow in TLDraw. Wait, no. I love using it in Excalidraw. Did you see that? It took my corrections that I said as I was speaking, and instead of dictating all of the corrections, it just adjusted the output. It corrected itself. I like them so much that I hit them up to sponsor. There will be ads soon. There probably won't be one on this video for them. This is not an ad. This is me actually really liking the product and thinking it's a great example of doing these flows right. So why the fuck can't Apple honor it when I go change the capitalization of a word? How the fuck is this third-party startup getting the UX around text an order of magnitude better than Apple is getting it when I'm typing it on my keyboard myself? How the fuck did we get here? This is the same company that invented novel ways to detect hit areas on a keyboard so that you could type and miss letters and it would feel like you hit them. Over the last 20 years, the keyboard's gotten worse, not better. What the fuck? Quick interruption from the future here. I've noticed how much worse typing is on iOS 26, and I haven't taken the time to figure out why, because again, I'm a slide typer. I slide by, drag my thumb around to type. But when I do peck type, it has felt way worse. And now I have seen it. See that right there? He typed the quick brown fox, but it had a U come up randomly. He is clearly pressing the H, and then it triggers the U all of a sudden when he lets go. This one is way worse when your phone is lagging, which I know because I've been building apps on my phone recently using Xcode, and the Xcode developer mode for your apps makes them run like fucking shit, especially when you're doing anything that involves the keyboard and moving around input fields. That makes the keyboard go from laggy to unusable. I have seen so much keyboard lag that I honestly thought I was overheating an Android phone. It was, Apple, Steve Jobs would have murdered people. I don't think I've said these people would get killed as many times in a video as I did in this one, but going back to where I was. So yeah, autocorrect not working is inexcusable. Buy Whisperflow, pay some decent developers, do something about it. Fucking fix it. It's been sitting here for so goddamn long, and the estimate of 3.4 thousand years taken from humans per day from this, I would argue is low. I also love they put estimates of how hard they think this would be to fix. 40 engineering hours might be high for fixing this one. It's going to need to go through a lot of approval processes, but the actual fix for this should not be a lot of work or code. And it would save 347 hours every second if they would just put in 40 fucking hours to fix it. And then the one that pisses me off the most, I remember when I installed the iOS update that did this, and I assumed it was a bug and would be fixed. See this UI right here? This is what Apple Pay used to look like. It's a little blurry. I'm struggling to find it. I'm sorry. Previously, there were two sections. The Apple Card section on the top, it's not Apple Card, the credit card section that you would click on to choose what card would be used for the transaction. And the bottom section, the contact section, which you would almost never need to touch for any reason other than you're buying a gift and you're shipping it to a different address. I make a lot of transactions for a lot of different things where I have to switch cards. I run 3 companies and have personal expenses. I can't really use a default card because depending on where I'm Ubering to or what I'm ordering, which of the 4 businesses or cards I should be billing varies a lot, which is why them fucking this up is unacceptable. Starting with iOS 18, they changed it. It shows the card on top still and then has change payment method under. Do you know what happens when you click the card? The reasonable assumption would be you change the card. No, that's how you change the address and billing information. I shit you not. The thing with the card on it's how you change your address. The thing with the text on it is how you change your card. It has been like this for 2 fucking years. Every single time I need to change the card to this goddamn day, I click on the card, not on the change payment method thing underneath. I would think I'm going insane, and I did for a bit until I saw it in this article and decided I had to make this video. And thank you, chat, for continuing to make me feel better about this. What the fuck, Apple? It's not even just the habit. It's if I hadn't learned the habit, they would still be wrong. The default behavior is what's wrong. Why do you ever need to change the address? And why would you think to touch the card to change it? The math on this one, I would argue, is low. They said 25% of users use Apple Pay. No, it's more than that. That's how Apple makes half their money. It's way more than that. 85% hit the bug case. I would argue it's more than that. How many change their cards a lot is lower. 0.3 times a day is their estimate is also very low. I'm obviously biased because I use a lot of different cards for the chaos that is my life. These numbers are low. And even with their low estimates, 334 years of human time is wasted every day. 121.9 thousand years a year, 1.1 billion hours of human time lost fighting this. Insanity. And this one, 8 engineering hours is probably a high estimate. Probably higher than it should be for how long it would take to fix. What the fuck, Apple? If I was in charge of Apple, I would fire people over this one. I'm not fucking around. The fact that this exists and that they have too much process to fix it. I know engineers have filed PRs to fix this, and they just sat there because there's a process for the change. No, fuck you, you're wrong, fix it. It's just... Steve Jobs would have strangled someone over this shit. Google Contact Sync is a black hole. I cannot tell you how many times I've had somebody say that their biggest problem with their phone is that every time they upgrade it, the contacts disappear. And every single time I look into what's going on, it's because they signed into their Google account in the Mail app. And believe it or not, if you sign into your Gmail in the Mail app on your iPhone, Your contacts no longer go to your iCloud. They now go to Google. What the fuck? I have fixed this for everybody from CTOs of big companies to my own goddamn mom. This is like Android level bullshit. 1.8K years a day is a low estimate on this one, considering how deep, also the depth of this pain, the depth of losing a phone number forever because it didn't save properly and not knowing where it is, if it's anywhere at all. I have phone numbers I cannot find for people I can no longer reach out to because I got fucked by this bug. You can't measure that in hours. You measure that in pain. And the pain for this one is absurd, considering that this would take a few engineers a few weeks to fix. Not to just shit on Android people quick. On Android, you choose where to save your contacts, to one of your emails or to storage. Yeah, it does that on every single contact save. That's not an improvement. Google giving you options that should not make sense every time is not how you solve this. You do not solve this problem by giving users more options. You solve this problem by making the defaults not shit. Here's another fun one. Airdrop, looking for devices. I've given up on Airdrop. I've given up on Airdrop so hard that I'm building my own alternatives for syncing files between computers. I can have two computers next to each other that are on the same iCloud account, and it's a 50-50 shot if I can actually airdrop from one to the other. There's a lot of people I've heard say that airdrop's why they're staying on iOS or macOS, and I do not understand any of you. I do not use airdrop. Every time I do, I regret it and just go grab a fucking flash drive or put it on Dropbox or something and send a link. Airdrop has caused me so much more pain than I've resolved and has all sorts of really strange quirks. Not to do another professional content creator rant here, believe me, I could do a lot of these. Do you know the most reliable way to transfer a large video asset from your phone to your computer? You know, let's say you're using the iPhone Pro's only distinctive feature, which is the ProRes RAW video that is gigabytes per second. I had a 500 gigabyte file on this phone that was 1 hour of footage that I need to transfer to my computer. My options were re-encode it. When you hit share, you know the little preparing wheel when you hit share? That's the video being re-encoded to a smaller format. That video re-encoding would have taken 2 hours and killed all of the quality that I bought this phone for. Option 2 is wait for it to go into iCloud, which it wouldn't because it kept failing because the file was 500 fucking gigs. Option 3 was airdrop it from my phone to my computer, which I tried to, and it failed multiple times throughout because the file was too goddamn big. Option 4, which apparently works now, it was unclear and not documented and not shown to the users. You can apparently airdrop over a cable. When you plug an iPhone into your computer over USB-C and you do airdrop, it will use the USB-C sometimes. And it will not tell you if it is or isn't. It just might do it. So I ended up going with a different option, the image capture app. Do you know what the image capture app is for? It's for scanners. This is the app that is used to get the image from a scanner on your local network or plugged in over USB to your computer. And it happens to have a niche feature where you can read things off of your phone when it's plugged in. Airdropping this file, even over the cable, would have taken multiple hours, and the few times I tried it failed. After researching for, I shit you not, over 30 minutes, I found this niche trick with the image capture app, the scanner app, and it transferred the file in 10 minutes. Airdrop is not a solution. Airdrop is a series of problems with cool branding. I fucking hate Airdrop, and I will never, ever recommend it. I don't know how you can estimate this one because this matters. This comes down to whether or not you've given up. I've given up, so this doesn't cost me time anymore. It just pisses me off. I've probably lost at least a few dozen hours to explaining to people why I won't use Airdrop. Also of note, thank you, chat, for reminding me to bring this up. I was going to, but I didn't think it mattered that much. Only the iPhone Pros have USB 3 speeds on the USB-C ports because USB-C is not a speed standard or a spec. It is purely a connection standard, which means most USB-C cables and ports are USB 2, not 3. I'm going to die. This one I think is a bit of a reach. I haven't seen this that much, and I have terabytes of shit in my iCloud photo storage. If you just go to iCloud Photos and you hit sync, it's fine. I will complain about iCloud Photo Sync a little bit, though, because the other way, which is on my Vision Pro, remember, I use screenshots to keep track of my to-do list. So I go to the Photos app on my Vision Pro. I use my Vision Pro once or twice a month, which means it's off a lot of the time. Want to drop an estimate of how long it takes for the Photos app on my Vision Pro to catch up and show me photos that I have on my phone in my cloud from that day? How much time do you think from when I open photos on my recently booted Vision Pro to when I can see recent photos? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 days, 4 hours. It's consistently between 1 and 3 hours. It's not downloading the fucking photos or videos. It is downloading the manifest of what ones exist. And occasionally it will also download like a thumbnail for each one. What the fuck? It's one of those things that makes the Vision Pro go from this unbelievable magical experience to feeling like no one cares. And that's how so many of these bugs feel. It just feels like Apple doesn't give a fuck, that they're asleep at the wheel, that they're not even using these things. Spotlight indexing. Again, it's one I don't deal with. I use Raycast. If you're using a Mac and you're not using Raycast, I don't think you're actually using the fucking Mac. Please, 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 please install Raycast. Spotlight is such a cool idea and it doesn't fucking work. Raycast is actually useful. Personal hotspot won't auto-connect. I've had this a lot where I'm trying to connect to my phone from my computer and it's like a 50-50 shot if it even works. Yeah. I have an actual physical portable hotspot I pay a monthly fee for because it's more reliable, even though it takes over a minute to boot. Another 1.9K years per day. That checks out. macOS 26 window resizing doesn't work. Yep. I hit this one every day on my other MacBook. Someone did thorough research showcasing this. Turns out the initial click in the window corner instinctively happens in an area where the window does not respond. The window expects this click to happen in an area of 19 by 19 pixels located near the window corner. Without a rounded corner, it would be the majority of it, but with the rounded corner, that is the area you have to click to resize the fucking window. This one screenshot should get people fired. I'm not the type to fire because I'm the type to not hire bad people. But motherfuckers, a whole team needs to be removed for this. What the fuck? The majority of the corner can't even be used to resize it. There's area right there that is part of the corner that does not work for resizing the app. What? This is you're holding it wrong, but in a way that is objectively right, and they could patch with a single ship, and they don't. This feels like vibe-coded slop, not like an Apple product. Why? How'd we get here? Here's a fun, annoying one. Apple Watch is always perpetually behind. I cannot tell you how many times I dismiss a notification on another device and it's still there on my fucking watch. I don't look at my watch beyond looking at the time. I use my watch so that the buzz hits my watch instead of my pocket, which I like marginally more. But I am so close to moving off my Apple Watch, you guys have no fucking idea. It does not feel useful anymore. I use it for like my keys and for the motor in it. That's it. I'm done. And there are so many reasons why. iOS text selection is pure chaos. Half agree. I really, really miss Force Touch. I miss it so much. Force Touch made this so much better, and it's bad now. As long as you do the thing where you hold the keyboard and use that to select from it, it's pretty nice. But if you do it any other way, you're fucked. Not to crash out about Airdrop more, but I have almost sent sensitive documents due to this bug. I was airdropping a contract to somebody, and right when I clicked them, the shift happened when someone else's airdrop appeared. I almost sent it to the wrong person. Do not ever share anything even vaguely sensitive over Airdrop. Not because the protocol is unsafe. The protocol is very safe. Because the likelihood you accidentally click the wrong person because it changes where people are is too high. Someone has gotten an unsolicited nude because of this. I guarantee you there has been people who got pictures they should not have, or documents they should not have, or fucked up things they should not see because of this. What the fuck? No, unacceptable. This is again one where like, I don't care about the years wasted measurement. I care about the pain inflicted measurement. This one's insane. This one's horrible. AirPlay menu reorders at click. There's a bunch of these bugs in macOS and iOS now. I feel like there never was before. And now suddenly, because everything's dynamic and on services and all of the continuity stuff where it all auto connects to each other, there are now a lot of lists in iOS and macOS. And those lists have content that is somewhat dynamic. The content can change as you're interacting with it. I would go as far as to say that Apple needs to set up some analytics in all of their product surfaces to see how long of a gap there is between when the UI renders its final state and when the user clicks. Because right now, if there's a list of items and you go to click something and the list changes the order right before you click, and there's like 100 milliseconds between those two, that was a mistake. That wasn't an intentional click. Nobody is clicking on the button within 100 milliseconds of the content appearing under the button or under their cursor when they touch it. Every single time they measure somebody clicking on something that appeared within 100 milliseconds of when they clicked, someone should get fucking fired. That should not be possible. At the very least, they should auto-reject that click or do something accordingly. But the fact that I have my thumb hovering over something and by the time I push it down, it's changed, that should be a fucking fireable offense. This is Android shit. Hell, this is like bad Linux distro shit. Yeah. 8 hours to fix this is maybe a little low because there are layers to what makes this so annoying. At the absolute least, they need to do more detection to see how they can prevent this. or at least a rejection of the click if the order of things changes right before you click. There should be at least a 500 millisecond cooldown from when the order changes to when you can interact. Shortcut sucking is just reality. You don't use shortcuts. I've given up. Finder forgets window sizes. Annoying, not that big a deal. Keyboard language switching, breaking. I speak one language, doesn't matter. For me at least. But that's a lot of bugs. I think that finishes up the software section well enough for now. I could spend a lot of time crashing out about Xcode, but I'm going to save most of that for the ignorance section because I have a lot to say about that section. Believe me, I have a lot to say about that section. But I need to complain about Apple policy first. Apple's policy is eroding them as a company, and it's happening on a lot of different levels. A lot of different levels. To simply sum it up, Apple suffers from what I would refer to as entitlement. They feel entitled to a lot of things. They feel entitled to their developers being fully dedicated to the company and never sharing anything about their work ever. They feel like if you as an employee are lucky enough to work at Great Apple, then you should feel honor bound by that work and never share anything that you're doing because you don't build things. You are part of Apple and Apple builds things. Whenever one of my teammates at my company builds something cool and I share it, I share who built it. I often tag them directly. And there is a lot of people who know the names of the people on my team and have their own favorites and love to like tag them in when I say something stupid. Like my team dynamic is a very public thing. It is incredibly rare Apple will even let you know what team or developer might have been involved in a given feature. They are being forced to be better about this some amount, but it's not really happening. It's certainly not happening fast enough. And as a result, there's a lot of great people who don't want to work at Apple. I don't want to toot my own horn here too much, but I have to a little bit. There was a point in time where I dreamed of working at Apple. It felt like the coolest place I could possibly be. I have a lot of opinions. I care a lot about the quality of the software I use every day. And I legitimately feel as though I could have prevented some of these things. I'm not going to sit here and say I would have kept this whole list of things from happening, but maybe, just maybe, I could have prevented one of these things from being quite as severe or for lasting quite as long as it did. But I will never work at Apple. There's a lot of reasons why. A lot of them are because I have a YouTube channel where I've complained about Apple in the past, even though I do love them dearly and use all of their stuff constantly. The fact that I would ever say anything negative about Apple is enough of a reason for them to never hire me. I'm probably on a blacklist by now. I would be surprised if I applied to Apple if I didn't get auto-rejected for many reasons. I also don't want to work somewhere where I can't talk about the work. You guys might know Jared Sumner. He built Bun, and now he works at Anthropic working on Bun. As you guys might have seen from some recent videos, Claude Code has some performance issues. A lot of people have been complaining about this, including Ben here, who said that we live in a clown universe where a simple TUI is driven by React and takes 11 milliseconds to lay out a few boxes. If someone said this about Apple stuff, which a lot of people say a lot of things about Apple stuff, you cannot fathom an Apple employee responding because they wouldn't. It would never happen. The thought of somebody saying Apple sucks, it's someone replying from Apple saying, you're right, we should fix that. I can't fathom that. Doesn't register in my head. Meanwhile, Jared from Anthropic, yes, Claude Code today is slow and uses too much memory. Well, fix. This would get you executed at Apple, not just fired. They would come for you and probably your children. But at Anthropic, who's often compared to Apple, this is totally fine. And then Tarek, who is, by the way, the guy in charge of Claude Code optics. He's their DevRel lead doing public Twitter optic stuff around Claude Code. Salute handoff. Yeah. A company that I give shit for not being transparent enough has set a bar that Apple can't even see. Apple is physically incapable of even processing the possibility of letting their individual employees have any agency at all. Great people have agency, and Apple does not let you have agency, which results in Apple losing great people. I know a lot of great ex-Apple people. I don't know any great people who are still at Apple. They leave because they are not rewarded for caring. They are punished for it right now. And that sucks because Apple was built by people who cared too much. It was built by people who were given weird amounts of agency to do crazy shit. And they have flipped to the opposite side in ways that are unfucking fathomable. And that's just part of the policy problems. And it really does come down to this entitlement. Apple feels entitled to having employees that don't talk about them and dedicate their lives to them. They also feel similarly entitled to you. I'm talking to you as a developer, but also you as a user. They feel entitled to your work and your money. Apple takes a 30% cut of all digital transactions done on iPhones. Unless you do them through the website, but no one does. Everybody uses apps. If you make a purchase in an app on an iPhone and it is digital, as in you're not being shipped a physical good or given a service, you are getting a digital book online, you're buying an item in a game, you're subscribing to somebody on Twitter or YouTube or Twitch. All of those things that cost money Apple gets 30%. You may have heard of a company called Patreon. Patreon lets creators monetize their audience with subscriptions with said audience. If you want to support a creator you like and get early access to their content or things like that, many creators have a Patreon that you can pay a small, like $5 to $20 a month fee to get early access and be part of a closer knit community with that creator. I have one. I barely use it. Don't subscribe to my Patreon. Honestly, don't pay me. I have sponsors to cover our bills. The whole point is that you can get this content for free. Don't ever feel like I need the money. If you want to pay me $5, save it and go pay it to somebody who doesn't have sponsors and doesn't have stable, consistent, reliable income doing content. They need it more. Patreon only takes 5 to 12% of that fee. So if I pay somebody $10 on Patreon, they get between $8 and $9.50. There are also payment processing fees because they're using Stripe, so 2.9% plus 30 cents. That's still across many transactions. If you get the lower rate here and then that, you're still under 10%. But then, as they say here, potential extra charges like Apple's App Store fees. Patreon went really hard trying to define subscribing to creators as a service, not a digital good. And through that, they were able to skirt Apple's 30% fees. Apple has spent the last 2 years threatening to ban them from the App Store for it. Because of the public outrage, Apple's delayed the implementation of this. But they have clearly stated to Patreon that if they do not change their payment system on iOS such that Apple gets their 30%, they will be banned from the App Store, and they have until November 1st. And if somebody already subscribed to you using Patreon's system before this change, Patreon doesn't auto-migrate you to Apple Pay. They will just cancel the sub or get banned from the App Store. This is fucking insane. This is actually absurd. Apple makes 3 to 5 times more money than Patreon when you subscribe to me on Patreon. That's absurd. You know what's even crazier? Think about the biggest apps on the App Store. Here are the apps that are most popular right now in the US. ChatGPT, sure. If you subscribe to this on the phone, Apple takes 30%. Upscrolled, some weird new vibe thing, has in-app purchases, cool, whatever. Threads is number 3. Threads does not actually have in-app purchases. Most of Facebook services don't have in-app purchases. Google Gemini, as far as I know, you cannot subscribe to Gemini through the app. You have to go do it through the website, and then you can use it in the app. Free cash, get paid real money. Sounds like a fucking scam. Google is Google. TurboTax, notice price free, no in-app purchases. This is an interesting thing I want you to think about. A handful of these apps are by billion-dollar companies. Things like Threads, Google Gemini, TurboTax, also things like your bank's app. Do you know what all of those apps have in common? They don't do in-app purchases. Something like the Bank of America app or the Chase app or any of these apps that are very, very big apps by very, very big companies that do a lot of bandwidth, update their apps all the time, and cost Apple a lot of money, which, reminder, Apple takes this 30% fee specifically because they believe they deserve the money because their service costs money to run, because they have an app review process where they approve apps before they can be published, because they have to serve those apps on their infrastructure, and because they have to manage this app store and curate all of it. They deserve some money. And I agree, they do. So let's just imagine 2 different app developers. Let's say, I don't know, Bank of America. Say they have 100 million installs. They have a team of 80 devs working on it. And then you have some indie game has 1,200 installs, 1 dev. Which of these 2 parties do you think pays Apple more money per year? Which of these 2 groups do you think Apple is taking more money from to cover those server costs? Is it the one that is worth billions of dollars, that has a giant team, or is it the independent developer making a game with microtransactions? Bank of America does not sell you digital goods. They are a service. Bank of America, very likely, pays $100 a year to Apple for the right to publish on the App Store, despite the fact they probably ship multiple updates a week, waste hours upon hours of Apple's time, cost them thousands upon thousands of dollars of infrastructure cost for redistributing that app, and they make the money back by charging indie devs 30%, keeping them from being able to make a fucking living. Because a lot of people have subscribed to my services on Twitch and on YouTube, I personally have probably helped subsidize development costs at Apple more than Bank of America has. I personally have probably paid Apple more fees than Bank of America has. What the fuck? And I picked this example for specific reasons. This example was brought up by the judge in the Apple versus Epic court case that Apple lost 3 separate times because they kept working around it, getting brought back into the court and having the judge just snap at them for being so fucking bad faith and so entitled as to think that they deserve 30% of every single thing that happens on their fucking platform. And as chat correctly pointed out, they lied in court many times about this throughout. Apple makes too much money off their 30% bullshit fee, so they won't change it. In 2024 alone, Apple made over $10 billion from App Store fees in just the United fucking States. That means they can justify spending up to $9 billion plus defending this in court. Because if they lose 10 bill. So they spent every penny they could on the court case against Epic and still got fleeced because they were doing illegal shit. The 30% fee from the App Store is horrifying. It is actually fucking absurd. It is the golden example of Apple's own entitlement. It should be illegal and they should be prosecuted. As mentioned before, a judge found that an Apple executive outright lied under oath in the Epic Games case, and they tried pursuing criminal action, not just like a fee, but like jail time. I've covered this case in depth many times. I did a really good video when Epic finally won for real. Check that out if you haven't, if you want me to go really in depth on this particular issue. Apple's absurd levels of entitlement around their fees, resulting in small devs getting fucked and billion-dollar companies spending $0, is actually fucking absurd. And thanks to legal people in my chat that know this shit, it's effectively unheard of in a civil trial to have criminal injunctions filed by the judge. Actual fucking absurdity, but that's the level Apple's at. And I don't think this is because Apple is inherently ontologically evil or some shit. I actually believe the execs at Apple have been so distorted in their brains, like the classic Steve Jobs Apple reality distortion field thing, that they genuinely believe that they are entitled to that revenue. I honestly would think that every single person at the top at Apple, if you ask them off the record privately, do you feel Apple genuinely deserves the 30% on every transaction on iOS? Every one of them would say yes. They've all bought into this fucking crazy entitlement at like a corporate level. It's actual fucking absurdity. On one hand, Apple doesn't compromise on the quality of their stuff for money in a traditional sense, usually. They're known for spending 3 times more on the DAC, the digital analog converter, than any other company for their phones and for their laptops, so you get way higher quality audio. Just little things like that. Apple goes the extra mile for things like the quality of the keyboard, the screen, the little things on their hardware. Like, they don't buy the cheap part, they buy the good part. And even that feels like it's starting to change. Mark Gurman dropped an absolute bombshell a few days ago. Apparently, internally, Apple uses Anthropic models, so the Claude models, for a lot of their work. They use it to power things internally, use it for a bunch of stuff. They were going to use it to power Siri. As you probably all know, Apple partnered with Google for Siri. So what happened there? What happened was, despite the fact that all of Apple is running on Anthropic internally, that is powering a ton of their stuff and their product development, their internal tools, the amount of money Anthropic wanted to charge them was too much. So they went back to their favorite rival, Google, for a model that is, I'll be direct here, objectively way fucking worse. Because they would rather continue suffering from the horrible, horrible experience that is Apple Intelligence than spend a little more cash to fix it. Steve Jobs would have bought Anthropic and fired the exec who proposed this. The fuck. The actual fuck. Like remember, this is the same company that went to dozens of different manufacturers to figure out who could make the best glass for the first capacitive touchscreen that could do multi-touch. Apple shipped the first major device with multi-touch capability by evaluating every single glass manufacturer in the goddamn world and reinventing the manufacturing process with a company known as Corning that is now the creator of Gorilla Glass and the glass that is on every fucking phone everyone buys now. Whole industry categories are formed around Apple caring too much about shit. Now they're buying the cheap model because they're scared of the price tag, despite the fact that Apple Intelligence is going to plummet the company into a recession. What the fuck? Apple policy is absurd. And we've touched on the final piece here throughout a lot of this, but I want to go in on it more. Apple's ignorance. Apple just does not pay attention to what's going on outside. And for a long time, that was fine. When the outside was so shit that learning from it would hurt you, that made sense. If Apple spent too much time paying attention to the smartphones in the stylus era, we would never have gotten an iPhone. If Apple paid too much attention to computers in the terminal era, we would have never gotten GUIs. If Apple does not wake up to the reality that every other company is making better software and experiences, especially regarding AI stuff, if they do not experience the fact that Claude Code is significantly better than Siri will ever be, or that ClaudeBot, OpenClaude, whatever it's called at this point, is comically far ahead of anything Apple's ever shipped in terms of assisting a user, if they do not wake up to this reality, they are fucked. And they don't. They're actively pretending none of this is real. Here's a fun fact drop that I probably shouldn't share, but it's been long enough I don't care that much. I had a higher up on Xcode confess some things to me recently, and if that person actually gets fired because of this somehow, I plead with you, reach out. I will get you double the salary and 10 times the opportunity if this statement gets you fired. I am genuinely sorry if it happens. I will make up for it for you financially and more. I feel bad spilling. I will not drop your name or any details beyond the fact that you're high up in whatever org area deals with Xcode. I ran into him at random redacted event. Will not share more details. It happened redacted number of years ago. Will not share more details. Came up to me, really excited to meet me because I was his bridge to how developers actually worked. One of the many reasons that Xcode is garbage software that is not useful for any real work is because nobody at Apple uses better software. You cannot make Xcode as good as VS Code if no one working on Xcode has ever opened VS Code. It is pretty obviously the case that no one working on Xcode has used VS Code because Xcode is the worst piece of software I have to interface with. It is so fucking bad that it is no surprise Apple software is going to shit. If Apple is building Apple with Xcode, Apple will never be good again because Xcode still has code from when they acquired Steve Jobs' second company in the 90s. The basis of Xcode is still next step. Yes, really. What the fuck? So this particular person at this particular team came up to me and told me how useful my videos were because he would use them both to keep up with how dev experiences worked outside of Apple and also as specific pointed resources and user stories to bring to his team to try to get them to acknowledge that things sucked there. And I was really excited to hear this. So I asked him how it was going, to which he said, "If I'm being totally honest, not great. I feel like nobody understands how far behind we are and that there is no world in which we catch up." So if that person is still at Apple and they do get fired over this, I'm sorry, but also you're welcome. We'll get you taken care of. But like, what the fuck? How am I, as a shitty fucking random YouTuber complaining about JavaScript, becoming one of the few internal resources they have at Apple for why Xcode sucks? And yet, nothing fucking happens. Apple's reality distortion bubble was okay when everything outside was worse. But now everything outside is getting better. Some of those things are further along than anything at Apple right now. It is absurd how far it's gone. As I showed before, none of the apps I use day to day are made by Apple. The OS is, and I'm considering making my own goddamn OS because I'm that frustrated. So you might be asking a very logical question at this point, especially if you've watched this whole video so far, to which I first off, thank you. I don't expect a lot of people to get all the way through this one. But if you are still here, I appreciate you. You're probably asking, why the fuck haven't I given up? Why is it that I am still using Apple's hardware and software every day? If I hate this all so much, why am I still using a Mac and why am I still on an iPhone? I'm seeing all of the suspicions, all the usual answers. I'm addicted to the Apple ecosystem. I'm an Apple fanboy, all the usual shit. First off, I want to say the Apple ecosystem thing pisses me off. I don't like any of the features that sync things between my phone and my computers. I hate continuity so goddamn much. I turn it off as much as I can. The copy-paste thing where it shares the clipboard a bit can be okay. I don't love it, but it's useful-ish sometimes. It's not great, though. I hate the AirPod thing where it switches between devices randomly. Drives me fucking mad. So why have I not given up? Why am I still here? There's a couple layers to this one. The first one, to be frank, Android's a dumpster fire. I've tried. I've legitimately tried. I have a Pixel Fold in my office. I tried driving it for a week. I survived a day before I also would dual wield my iPhone because I couldn't deal with it. And I gave up entirely after like 3 days. I just couldn't do it. The hardware was incredible. I actually really like the new Pixel Folds. It feels magical unfolding the display and having a big, good screen. And then you have to open an app on it and everything falls apart. Android itself is not that horrible, but the quality of software on Android is so fucking atrocious. Not only can I not recommend Android, I cannot trust people who recommend Android because you don't know what good software is if you think the Twitter app on Android or even the YouTube app on Android is a usable experience. The fact that YouTube on Android is so much buggier than YouTube on iPhone when YouTube's already buggy on iPhone, what the fuck, Google? And I'm not using some crazy hacked, jailbroken, rooted phone. I'm using Google's official phone with Google's official OS with Google's official bugs. Sorry, apps, but they feel more like bugs than apps. So that's a big part. Android's a dumpster fire. Linux is fine though. So why am I not at the very least moving to Linux on my computer? Is it the lock-in? No, I don't have lock-in problems with my Mac. I could and have moved off in many ways. I'm recording this video on a Windows PC as we speak. I use Windows and Mac almost 50-50 on a given day because I use Windows for managing all my content and assets and also for relaxing on my TV and playing games. I use my Mac for work and as the thing I plug in exclusively. Why am I using my Mac for my work though? Actual fucking software. Like, it's so far ahead in very specific places. GIMP is a joke. I'm sorry, I hate shitting on good faith open source software. There's lots of open source solutions that are genuinely really good for lots of things. GIMP is not usable. In my tweet where I crashed out about macOS 26, someone tried to sell me on Linux, and I said the following. I love Linux. I can't use it for my work, sadly. Creative software is not there yet for things like graphics, Affinity Photo and Photoshop, video editing. I'm a Final Cut diehard. Final Cut's an Apple program, so that'll never run anywhere else. And even just doing HDMI 2.1 for HDR displays. I could not record my footage the way I currently do on a Linux machine. And before you Linux, you will open your fucking mouth about this HDMI one. I see you typing. Stop. Listen for a second. I know you're bad at listening because you can't do it from your terminal and because your audio drivers are broken. Listen for just a moment. I have worked with everybody from kernel maintainers to level 1 tech Wendell over this one. And the industry-wide conclusion is that we will never have HDMI 2.1 on Linux. Even the Steam box is going to ship with a 60 hertz limit on the HDMI out. It's not viable. And to be fair, part of this is because of the HDMI standard. I would argue the vast majority of this is because the HDMI standards are shit and the HDMI consultorium needs to be broken up. They're a fucked up monopoly. Having a port that can do a thing and a GPU that can do a thing, and I'm not allowed to do the thing because they won't let Linux do it. It sucks. It's not Linux's fault, but the licensing around HDMI is so fucking bullshit that I cannot use Linux. And while I do not blame Linux, I do blame every Linux fanboy for pretending it's not a real problem and telling me I could absolutely capture the way I like to. The way I capture is a 720p high DPI upscale. So it's 1440p out and an effective 720p ratio. I could not get a Linux distro to do that on my laptop and show me a scaled image on the laptop. I had the framework team working with me to get this to work on the framework, and we concluded that we cannot do it, that it wasn't worth it. The conclusion that we came to is the best case is maybe, just maybe, I could set up some custom grub fork that would allow me to set a manual set of resolutions that would prevent Linux from using ones that were not compatible with my setup. Maybe. Or I can go hit the button on my fucking Mac. Or on my Windows PC, by the way. Linux is not usable for professional creative work unless it is being used as one of the things in your pipeline. I have Linux boxes that do a lot of encoding for us. They're great. They're really useful. If you can do your job in FFmpeg, you can do your job in Linux. If you need to see the work as you're doing it, you're probably fucked. Linux is not usable for real-world creative work. And to go a step further, I would say the same about Android. The video quality on Android is garbage. The photos have caught up. A photo taken on the best iPhone and on the best Android phone, the Android phone will probably win. It won't be by a lot, but it will. Android phones can take slightly better photos than iPhones can. Android phones take garbage fucking video. I could do a very long rant about the pipeline difference between how iPhones are integrated with the video, like as part of the actual CPU on the phone that can write directly to storage while skipping the OS, while Android's still running all of it through fucking Java. We're talking like a 10 to 100x bandwidth difference in their capability. And the results that Android drops frames at 60 FPS at 4K, and iPhones can do HDR at the same quality that a Blackmagic $10,000 camera can. So if you're actually using video for your work on your phone, you cannot use an Android phone. Even when I was daily driving the Android phone, I actually had to do a trip. I brought my iPhone to use as a camera just so I could film videos when I was there on a real fucking phone. Everyone who says that Android and Linux have caught up and that I'm insane just hasn't talked to a professional. And to be clear, there are plenty of things that Linux is as good, if not slightly better at. But for my use case, for my day-to-day, there are so many things that make using Android and Linux untenable for my work. I would be forcing the quality of my pipeline to go down significantly by switching to a more expensive laptop with worse battery life. Why the fuck would I do that? It makes no sense. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And to the people saying Samsung is used by a lot of creators, Samsung is used by creators who are live streaming. My bitrate for my stream right now is between 4,000 to 5,000 kilobits per second. That's good enough for okay 1080p 30 stream. My bitrate when I'm recording on my phone is multiple gigabits per second. We're not talking about a 10 or 100x. It's 1,000x different in bitrate. You're doing professional video work. You're not doing it at 5,000 kilobits per second with a 1080p stream. You're doing it with raw video files, or at the very least, log video files at really high bit rates in 4K. You cannot do that on any Android phone. Not viable. There are many that will list it as a spec, but then when you look at the video files coming out or you break those things apart, nope, not fucking happening. It's just not real at all. I've just been talking about the software, but what about the hardware? Because obviously, like, Apple Silicon was great, but we're catching up, right? Like, I literally just saw yesterday, Panther Lake chips, like the new Intel chips, are outperforming Apple's M5 by 33% on multi-core. It's happened, right? That means an Intel chip will finally be faster than an Apple chip. That's great. Awesome news, right? No, because they're kind of lying. Apple's chip outperforms Intel's by 50% in single-core workloads. Do you know what makes this go from funny to fucking hilarious? Like, that's already really funny. Like, it's really funny that Apple is 50% faster in single core and 33% slower in multi-core, which doesn't matter for a lot of things, but it matters for me because I'm a professional. I need multi-core workloads to work well when I'm doing things like video encoding. What if I told you that my current MacBook also laps the Panther Lake chips? They did this because they compared to M5, not M4. Fun fact, and this is another partial Apple crash out, the M4 is more powerful than the M5, at least in certain computers. Not because the M5 is terrible and the M4 is great, but because the M5 does not have a Pro or Max SKU. The MacBook Pro with an M5 does not have an M5 Pro. There is no M5 Pro chip. A MacBook Pro with an M4 is probably an M4 Pro or Max chip. See that? M5, M4 Pro, or M4 Max. The M5 has a 10-core CPU and a 10-core GPU. The M4 Pro starts at 12-core CPU, 16-core GPU, and goes up to 14 CPU, 20 GPU. And then there's the M4 Max, which goes up to 16-core CPU, 40-core GPU. So Intel here is comparing their highest core, highest performance chip to Apple's lowest core, lowest performance chip. And Apple's chip in multi-core is 33% slower while having 60% fewer cores. Actual insanity. To be fair, Apple fucked up here. The fact that an M4 Pro is faster than an M5 in a MacBook Pro is confusing. They should never have put a non-Pro chip in a Pro computer. That was an unforced error in Apple that I'm mad at them for still. And despite that, despite being the cheapest chip on Apple's cheapest computer that can be purchased in an iPad for $800 or less, it still is 50% faster than Intel's best ever chip at most work. And again, let's look at the numbers. In single core, the Ultra 9, this new processor by Intel, gets 130 on Cinebench. Single core. The M5 gets a 199. The M4 Pro gets a 165. The standard M4 got a 172. That seems weird. Whatever. It's a meaningful bump to M5 for single core. But multi-core, again, with way fucking fewer cores, the Core Ultra X9 388H, Intel's naming will never ever be good. The multi-core score was 1,285, which is meaningfully better than the 922 that M5 got, except for the fact that the M4 Pro, not the M4 Max, the M4 Pro got a 1493. So Apple's mid-tier chip from a year and a half ago still scores better than Intel's best-in-class chip right now that everyone is excited is 30% faster than Apple. No, it's not. You're being fucking lied to. Anybody who actually thinks Intel has caught up to Apple is either dishonest or stupid. I'll let you guys pick which. And it sucks. I want Intel to do better, not just because I have a bunch of Intel stock, which I do, which has been painful, but because I want there to be more competition. I don't want to be stuck on Apple because their processors don't suck, but I am currently stuck on Apple because they're the only processors that don't suck. Yet here we are. If I want a laptop that has a good battery, a good screen, and good performance, my only option is Apple. And that's not even counting the software parts as well that also make it only Apple. I am stuck with Apple because they're actually the only option for the work I do in the life I live. And it sucks that that's the case, but it is. If I want to film videos I can put on my channel on my phone, I need an iPhone. If I want to edit video in software that doesn't suck, I'm stuck with either Windows or Mac. But if I want it to be on a laptop I can use on my lap with a real battery, I'm now entirely stuck on Apple, or I'm stuck with way worse performance. There is no other option. I am stuck here for better or worse, which is why I wasted all of your time and hopefully a few Apple employees' time recording this long-ass video. I don't have a choice. I'm stuck here. But you might. If you don't have the specific restrictions I have that force you to stay with Apple stuff, like if you don't need this graphic software or you're okay with slightly worse performance on a computer that you have a bit more control of, you probably should move off. I do not fault anyone for making the move away from Apple stuff, especially today, because it genuinely just feels like they don't care anymore. That said, if you come to me and say I, as a professional creative, should move as well, Hopefully this video will explain why that's dumb. Because I need these computers and phones to work because they're the only options for my work. If they aren't the only option for you, it is worth considering other things. But for those of us who do graphics for a living, for those of us who need powerful computers on the go, and for those of us who need our shit to just work, it really is sad that Apple stuff works so much worse now. Despite all of this, I do actually see a future where I move off of Apple, especially now that we can vibe code alternatives to all of the things keeping me there. If I am stuck on Apple because of video editing software and graphics software, it might actually be worth the effort to make better software than it is to keep fighting Apple. And Apple, take this as the warning shot it is. You were way, way ahead because your software platform was ahead. That gap isn't closing, it's already closed. AI makes it way easier for anybody who wants to compete with you to make something compelling. I've built better software than you myself in my spare time in a few hours. Wake up, grow up, and fix your fucking shit. And hopefully now, after all of this, people will stop calling me an Apple fanboy. Even though I think that the port on the bottom of the mouse wasn't the worst decision ever. Let me know in the comments how much you hated that comment, and until next time, keep giving Apple shit.